Welcome to the Real News Network. I'm Sharmini Pearce coming to you from Baltimore. A recent electoral survey conducted by the University of Macedonia Research Institute for Greek Sky TV showed that Alexis Tsipras of SYRIZA leading by 4.5 percentage points over Samaras, the incumbent New Democracy Party leader. The European markets are getting nervous over all of this and the possibility of a SYRIZA-led Greece. Now joining us to discuss all of this is Leo Panitch. He's coming to us from Toronto. Leo is a distinguished research professor of political science at York University in Toronto. He's the winner of the UK Deutsche Book Prize for The Making of Global Capitalism, the Political Economy of American Empire. He's also the co-editor of the 2015 volume of the Socialist Register titled Transforming Classes. Thank you so much for joining us, Leo.
Glad to be here again, Sharmini.
So, Leo, what's going on in Greece? What are the challenges that SYRIZA is going to face if they were to actually succeed in this election?
Well, the challenges are immense. This has been a global economic crisis. And what is remarkable about it is that only in Greece is there a political party which is putting forward a clear, radical, democratic alternative of a progressive kind against neoliberalism and austerity. Only in Greece is there a party that is now on the doorstep of entering the state. This says a lot about the weakness of the left around the world. It says a lot about the remarkable resilience and strength of the Greek left in what has always been a highly politicized society. So the challenges in that sense are fantastic. The decision of the leader of SYRIZA, Alexis Tsipras, in 2012, the previous election, in the run-up to it, to say, we will enter government. We'll enter it on our own. We'll enter it in a coalition with anybody who will join with us in order to stop the torture, the rape, the exploitation of the Greek people in a condition where unemployment reached 25%, where minimum wages were cut by a third, where virtually all collective agreements were broken. The rule of law was simply thrown out in relation to labor relations, where people were cut off electricity, pharmaceuticals, welfare, etc. So the situation was appalling. It was Depression-era conditions, and it was imposed by the European Central Bank, and above all, by the German Central Bank acting behind the European Central Bank. In terms of demanding a extreme policy of radical austerity, as was done for Latin America in the 1980s. Now, so to take that on, to enter into a government and to say we are going to renege on all of those reactionary policies, we are going to, as what SYRIZA is promising.
So, Leo, what is it then SYRIZA is promising its voters?
They are promising to reinstate collective bargaining and reinstate the rule of law in labor relations. They are promising to raise the minimum wage. They are promising to reconnect people who have been thrown of access to electricity in their own homes back onto the grid. And that has already been done by the governor of the Athens region, Lena Duru, who was elected in the municipal elections which took place at the time of the European elections last spring. She's reconnected the tens of thousands of people who were cut off. Those kinds of immediate things are radical things, believe it or not. And that has nothing to do with the very larger question of whether Greece will continue to pay the interest on the debt and will continue to treat as legitimate the enormous debt that was run up by the reactionary and in many senses corrupt governments in conjunction with the very small oligarchic ruling class that runs most of Greek industry and finance.
So, Leo, if you read the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and even the Bloomberg today, it is speculating that if SYRIZA wins, it will leave the euro. Is that realistic?
SYRIZA is not saying that they want to leave the euro. They wouldn't be anywhere near where they are in the polls would they say that. The question is whether they can do the things that I was describing that they would do and go beyond that to develop an economic policy of infrastructure building, public investment, have some say over what's invested, how it's invested, so that they come out of the crisis in a progressive manner. The question is whether they can do that while carrying the very, very heavy debt burden that still remains on them. They've received very large loans from the European Union, the European Central Bank, and the IMF in exchange for introducing this austerity. But that has not taken any of the debt burden off. All that's involved is those loans were used to pay off the German and French banks, and indeed the private Greek investors who are holding Greek bonds. And for any government to continue to have the obligation to be paying 5% interest rates, 6% interest rates, 10% interest rates. In the Greek case, it can be as much as 20% and more, paying interest rates to these banks and wealthy investors, rather than using the taxation they're able to get once they introduce an honest tax system in Greece, which it's never had, that they should be using that to be paying that off to either wealthy Greek capitalists or to foreign bankers. This would be scandalous. Now, the fact that a government should even contemplate the necessity of doing that, of scaling down the actual debt, of working out with their debtors, we can't pay you, but we will pay you so much less on the dollar and buy back this debt. This is what was done in Ecuador. It's been done hundreds of times over the last century. Greece can't introduce capital controls. It can't devalue its currency because it is part of the euro system. It doesn't have its own currency. So it can only try to do that. And what you're reading in the press is the great fear that a government might come in, and a democratically elected government, and act not in favor of capitalists, but act in favor of the people. And then it's not that the Greece wants to leave the euro. They're saying we want to work out an arrangement for doing this rationally. And they're supported in this by an enormous number of mainstream economists.
Leo, thank you so much for joining us. And then in our next segment, let's deal with whether SYRIZA will be successful at negotiating itself out of the mess that Greece is in.
I'd look forward to it, Sharmini.
And thank you for joining us on the Real News Network.